What's your take right now on what's going on in Gaza? It seems that Israel is bombing everything. It's unbelievable what's happening right now in Gaza.
Nothing but my blood boiling, essentially. And especially when you begin to look at the number of the Palestinian civilian victims, it's unacceptable. It's bordering on a full-blown genocide now. It is definitely a massive war crime. And the numbers are terrifying when you think about it in the proportion to the population. And we are in the middle of the ethnic cleansing. It's something out of the horror movie. So, I mean, I had the kind of inclination, obviously, to understand Israel at some point of time, despite my obvious disagreement with their policies of settlements. But now it's, I reached the limit. I'm over the limit. The Netanyahu government and basically what Israel does is a war crime, period. There's no other definition to it.
Can you understand what's the strategy on the part of the Netanyahu administration?
The point is that we cannot discount, and this is what I've been going through for the last year at least, the eschatological, almost death cult, intentions on the Likud, on the part of Likud party, and those fundamentalist groups of Israelis, Jews primarily, obviously, who view it in terms of biblical terms, if you wish. So they are really just unhinged people in many respects. So we are talking about strategy not in a serious social or military sense, although the element of Netanyahu trying to save his skin because he might end up in jail and save his political career should certainly be factored in. But I think so we also have those eschatological, as he says himself, biblical, ideas behind that, at least on the parts of his government. So we are dealing with people who are, downright mad, so there is no strategy. They just want to clear Gaza. They want to remove Palestinians and make Gaza basically part of Israel. I mean, so that's simple as that. And we are observing it in real time right now.
Do the Biden administration have some sort of leverage on what they're doing right now in Gaza? Can they influence the Netanyahu administration to bring them to sanity, to reduce this destruction that is happening right now in Gaza?
Well, judging by the utter failure of Mr. Blinken's visit to the Middle East, I think so they can do things, but the problem is not this administration. There's nobody who will go out and sternly warn Israel. And again, do not forget, American foreign policy is absolutely captured by the very influential Israeli first public in the United States, including all those. I mean, I just listened to Michael Brenner yesterday, beautiful interview. And again, Michael Brenner is one of the best foreign international relations brains in the United States. That is why he is not in the political elite. So he is basically speaking on the issue of the evangelicals and those Christian Zionists, which literally infest, the American foreign policy establishment from the side of the not just Democrats, but primarily Republicans. And so we have this kind of consensus. So no matter what Biden administration tries to do, the Israeli lobby in the United States is extremely powerful. We know what AIPAC is, and its power rests not only on the Jewish influence, it rests a lot on those, evangelical Christians who support, their Old Testament eschatological cults, basically, and they are omnipresent in politics and in the voting blocks. So you have this combination, so to speak, a double whammy or perfect storm of this. And in this particular case, how can you change it? You need to figure the scale of FDR or Eisenhower to do anything about it. Other than that, goodness gracious, again, what do you expect from Blinken to do anything about it? He, openly states that he's, He's basically Israeli first term. So there you go.
How do you see this conflict in Israel? How is it going to influence the relations between the US and the Arab states?
It is well-known fact. It's really, there's nothing new about it, that Arabs want to fight Israel to the last Palestinian, so we have to keep this in mind. But there is no doubt that currently nobody really wants the war, realistically. Even the United States doesn't want the war, although Netanyahu government probably pushing for the wider war, including the possibility of attacking Iran. But I would say that it's already, the gap is growing dramatically, but it's not just Arabs who are now basically pushed into the corner with everything what is happening, that even Saudi Arabia Foreign Ministry yesterday issued a stern letter to Israel, which otherwise you wouldn't expect it, but it was done publicly and it's condemning it in the strongest terms. So for Arabs to do that, especially Saudi Arabia, my God, this is really serious. So, but it is primarily not just the regional reaction, which obviously you can imagine now that Arab Street is livid, obviously, with all that. But it is also the issue of the overall international stance, and this situation contributes to the isolation which is happening as we speak of the United States, not just Israel. And, we can only guess where it will go with all that. But I think so it might become an irreparable damage. But again, we have to see. Egypt obviously is kind of, on the back burner. Iran certainly doesn't want the war. Nobody really in their own mind want the wider war. And they work, obviously, as you may expect. There is an absolutely, high intensity, hustling, so to speak, in the secret and open diplomacy between the, for example, Russia, China, Arab nations, and Iran, obviously, and United States. So who knows? I cannot predict anything on this matter, because we're literally dealing in Israel with many unhinged people. So, and many people still do not understand that there is obviously the third position, not pro-Hamas or anti-Hamas. You could be anti-Hamas, but be pro-Palestinian, so, and I think so Israel exhausted its legitimate public relations excuses and justifications now with what it does to civilian population of Gaza. It's unacceptable. It's a war crime on a massive scale.
If you recall, we had Iran and Saudi Arabia and UAE joining BRICS just recently. Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia was talking about, we want to build something like European Union in the Middle East. With this conflict in Israel, it's changing everything.
Just a few days ago, Iran issued a proposition for BRICS, or however you're going to be calling it after that, that we need to, they say, Iranians said, we need to create the non-aggression pact between all members of BRICS. And it's actually a profound statement there. And okay, let's be very open about it. United Nations, as we know it, is dead. It's utterly corrupt organization. It is completely, paid for by the United States. It's laughable, okay? As organization, and as you already saw, many people now begin to simply leave it. And it has to die. The way it exists today, it has to die. It's not workable. It's essentially subsidiary of the Anglo-Saxon, world for the of their foreign policy establishment, which basically stamps whatever is brought to the floor of the General Assembly or what have you. So whatever they vote in General Assembly, it's just primarily the PR thing. So the matter, of course, with the Security Council of the United Nations, and it's dominated in terms of vetoing by the United States and its lapdogs from UK and France. BRICS essentially is poised to become a sort of emerging alternative and the platform for what amounts to the most of humanity, you know. So, with the exception, of course, with the combined West, which itself is undergoing a profound transformation. So, if we look at this, and then we have after what Iran proposed, and then we have suddenly Saudi Arabia issuing those statements, and then you have Iran and Saudi Arabia resolving their issues. So we can totally see that obviously there could be some kind of we have already the League of the Arab Nations. We do have that, but it could be just one of the elements which is now basically incorporated in the new security and international relations structure globally. And BRICS, of course, in this respect, is the foundation for all that. And yeah, I think so. That's the strategic goal, which really is not being articulated because we don't want to discredit for now the United Nations, which it discredited already itself so much that. So, and even when Mr. Lavrov, for example, says anything about United Nations, he talks primarily about the following the charter, not the present United Nations structure. So, and Russians do not discredit it for now because obviously Russia, the Soviet Union, was one of the founding members and a member of the permanent member of the Security Council. So Russia is not going out there black mouthing it, although United Nations totally deserved it. But yes, I think so that regional Arab structure, or however we will call it, will become adjacent to a degree or within what is emergent through BRICS, new, so to speak, global South, however you call it, you know, global primarily political and economic organization, but certainly with having the military element eventually in mind too. So this is probably how I see it. Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong, obviously.
The public opinion is totally against Israel, radically against Israel. You see in Europe, you see in the US, you see in Middle East, everywhere. It's something amazing. We haven't seen something like this before. How is it going to influence the Arab leaders in their future relation with Israel? China and Russia are considering that. They know that the next leaders in these countries, at least the political parties who are running the country, would consider these forces that are out on the streets against Israel.
Yeah, yes, I agree with you, absolutely. And again, knowing Russian diplomacy, how it operates, and it does operate strategically, actually. And since the times of Mr. Primakov, late Mr. Evgeny Primakov, who obviously was all kinds of the statesman figure in Soviet and Russian history, and he was the Middle Eastern scholar. From the get-go, he was the one in the Soviet times already. They're pushing for the closer association of the Soviet Union and Arab world. So you have this kind of tradition of Primakov's doctrine, you know, if you wish, part of it, this doctrine. And Russia remains firmly behind the Arab world in this respect. And certainly for politically and diplomatically, for Russia, it's working out great right now because you do have the shifting of the geopolitical balance with condemnation of Israel. I never heard anything like this in my life too. I mean, we literally have basically Israel and United States, and it plays to a larger objective of Russia of dismantling Pax Americana, because obviously Israel, the way it exists, it's a symbiotic relation between Israel and United States. We still don't know how many dual citizens of Israel and US are in the US Congress. I mean, so, you know, it's just basically Israel could be viewed as the additional state of the United States. And in this particular case, it certainly plays to the Russian interest in the long run. It certainly plays to the Chinese interest to the long run. And when you have such heavyweights as China and Russia, behind Arab world, the whole balance of power shifts immediately, especially considering what is happening militarily to the United States, not just to Israel. Israel has obviously those unhinged people who call on dropping nuclear bomb on Gaza, and they still are merely reprimanded instead of being fired immediately by Netanyahu. So, but even Netanyahu recognized this, So Israel's reputation has been damaged probably irrevocably, especially with the Likudniks and especially for the IPAC. So in the United States. So in this particular case, yes, we can say that there is a trend of the, I don't know what will be their solutions, what will be their basically arrangements after this. Hopefully this stops very soon. Russia calls on the two-state solution. Many people call on the two-state solution. How it could be arranged, again, as I already stated, I'm not specialist in the Middle East and especially in the Israel-Palestinian relations, but something has to be done. This has to stop. This cannot continue like this anymore. We're definitely at one of the most important inflection points in the history of the Middle East, and that has to somehow be arranged.
If Turkey attack Israel, it's gonna change everything. It's not likely, but it's not impossible as well.
Correct. And keep in mind, Erdogan is the Muslim Brotherhood guy. He is, so Turkey was basically trying to become the leader of the Islamic world for a while now. And between them and Iran, these are realistically two countries which are capable of, doing this economically, just in terms of size and, development. So for Turkey, it's its moment. We know this. Before that, Erdogan was obviously sitting on the two chairs simultaneously, and it's understandable. For example, Vladimir Putin, Moscow, Kremlin, they understand Erdogan's posture. He was obviously maneuvering always for the benefit of himself and Turkey as such, squeezing basically both parties for what they got. Now it's the moment. And evidently, Erdogan now is speaking not from the both sides of his mouth, but looks like he found his footing. And he is speaking very aggressively, very openly about Israel. And he basically saying that he erased Netanyahu from the list of people he can talk to. This is in Middle East, that is insult of the first, degree. So, and basically Netanyahu is dead for Ankara now, for Turkey. And what will, I agree with you, it's not impossible that Turkey may even consider the military action in this respect. But the point is that for Turkey, it's the moment to shine among the Islamic world. And this inevitably makes the crack within NATO even wider. My friend Larry Johnson spoke, I believe, to you. He was talking about that. Basically, NATO is facing the decomposition. It is decomposing as we speak. But Turkey, obviously, and again, Turkish future is not realistically in Europe because Europe is becoming very poor. It will become very poor eventually. And obviously the composition of the population and everything is changing in Europe, not to the European benefit. So Turkey understands that energy, future, technology, economic development is in the East. It's through Russia, through China, through the other states and nations of the East. So whatever the road Erdogan will take, but it seems that he really made an important step towards Turkey, usually kind of friendly, to a degree, relations with Israel. And this will affect, obviously, the perception on the Arab street too. Everybody in the Arab street knows that what Iran does, okay? And Iran is primarily Hezbollah. Hamas is the whole other story altogether. There are no nice guys among them, frankly speaking, So, but the point is that for Erdogan, that's the moment to shine. And if he will arrange in some way the change of Israel's position and ceasefire, which is absolutely needed, and Netanyahu's government, vehemently refuses to do so. We'll see, but Turkey is definitely a huge player in this whole situation, and it is a huge player in terms of defining the future or whatever will remain of NATO.
So strange, the relations within NATO, because Turkey wanted to buy fighters from the US. The US was not willing to sell them. I don't know what kind of relation is that. Is a military alliance?
For Turkey, again, Turkey in NATO today is merely, it's an ersatz. It's kind of, a fake substitution for being part of the European Union for them. And again, militarily, a lot has changed in military relations between, for example, United States and Turkey. Obviously, Turkey was interested in this lame duck F-35 only from the point of view that Turkish aerospace companies have been involved in making parts for it, which have been there. Obviously, the issue for the profit, they were making parts of their, of the wing for F-35, some other systems, including some avionics parts, but not anymore. What are you gonna do? You still fly those F-16s, for Turkish Air Force, and we already know that S-400, they bought one, they want to buy the other one. That created a huge, obviously, scandal, as you remember, between the United States and Turkey. And again, there is a technical dimension to it that obviously, because S-400 makes all those stealth fighters basically not stealth. So, and Turks knew it. Turkey also now participates very strongly into because Russian shipbuilding industry is completely booked. Russians desperately building newer and newer shipbuilding facilities. But for now, Turkey builds a lot of ships, actually, commercial shipping for Russia. Just to give you an example, recent one being this Baltic ferry, which is almost 14,000 metric tons of displacement. So Turkey has already a very important part to play in Russia in terms of industry, not to speak about the fact that truckload of the construction companies in Russia are run by Turks. So, and now we have the other situation which Turkey has to think about how they form, their future air force. They work on their fighter, but whatever they are working on it's still very many years away from becoming a reality and becoming a viable weapon systems. So what's you're left with? Well, you're left with going to Mr. Putin. Erdogan and Putin are kind of friends, So Erdogan picks up the phone and asks, hey, Vlad or Vladimir, do you have anything for my Air Force? And Putin will tell him, hey, remember 3 years ago, you set an Su-57 and Su-35? Here it is. This is for taking, and Russia is expanding, obviously, her combat aviation, manufacturing dramatically as we speak. So I think it will be only natural for Erdogan to go for eventually buying Russian combat aircraft, which performed brilliantly during the special military operation. And I mean, it's just absolutely something unprecedented. And Russian Air Force flying Su-35s and Su-57s, it has a massive combat score with extremely low serious losses, So Erdogan and his military, they certainly think about it. Apart from the fact that it is well known, Turks liked S-400 very much. They really loved it, So we'll see, but it's certainly possible. And I think at some point of time, it becomes highly probable.
Just assuming if Turkey gets fading away from the NATO, what would happen to NATO in your opinion?
I think if NATO will exist in some form in the future, it will be primarily built around this triumvirate of UK, Germany, and France, with other smaller Western European nations existing there. In terms of the Eastern Europe, we already see there basically upheaval in the Eastern Europe. And again, make no mistake, Mr. Orban is not pro-Russian. Mr. Orban is pro-Hungarian, okay? But eventually the European Union itself will disintegrate, because basically what you have now in terms of European Union is a bunch of unhinged policies being imposed on its members. So if NATO will exist, it will exist and will be basically removed towards Western Europe, and that's about it. Poland actually contributing much to the disintegration of NATO. In fact, is in some sense, I think so, they basically contribute more than Turkey. And so the way it looks like, Eastern Europe will probably create some kind of its own basically economic and possibly military alliance, which will not be necessarily threatening to Russia. It depends how they will arrange it. We're talking about, of course, Visegrad group and things of this nature. Who knows? But you already saw yourself what happened with Slovakia, you know. Then again, don't forget, Turkey has one very important thing in terms of NATO, which NATO countries don't have. If you look at Turkish polls, and I wrote about it for a couple of years now, Turkish population is actually very favorable, not only of Russia and Russians, but huge majority of Turks say that they have to have strategic relationship with Russia over the United States. It's like 80% of Turks thinks that Russia is a strategic partner and friend. To only 20% think that United States is strategic partner. So there you go. You don't have those attitudes in Europe. Although in Slovakia, what happened in Slovakia obviously is a kind of signal that you have. Well, they call him pro-Russian. Well, he's not pro-Russian, but he's pro-Slovakian, obviously, president. But certainly he understands Europe. Europe has nothing. I mean, Western Europe literally has nothing. Has no resources anymore. Has no all kind of zeal to preserve itself. You have the cultural implosion as we speak. And people like Orban or Slovakia, and they begin to rethinking their posture. It doesn't mean that Slovakia or Hungary will join BRICS, you know, or whatever is becoming of BRICS. But eventually, inevitably, as small nations, they will be, you know, pulled by the gravitational pull of this military economic monster in the Eurasian continent, that they will have to get at least very constructive and cooperative relations without becoming part of it. So, and it's not needed really. I mean, nobody wants again this gigantic bloated, you know, structure like BRICS, unless of course it turns itself eventually into the basically something of the equivalent of the United Nations. But the gravity of this Russia-China axis, militarily, economically, geopolitically, what have you, culturally, is colossal as we speak. It already begins to provide this massive gravitational pull. And that's what we see. It's one of the things which drives the situation with the United States trying to preserve by all kinds of the insane actions its supposed hegemony. It's not there anymore. With Israel and Hamas, all this, it's all part of this process. And so Europe, Europe is being reduced right now to the second world status. It eventually will become the third world.
There is an article in Time magazine. One of the closest advisors of Zelensky says that he's delusional. He still thinks that he can win this war. And we have just today came out that the Zelensky's office is trying to silence Zaluzhny. It's a mess there in Ukraine. And on the other hand, we had Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin at the Senate asking for more funds and weapons to send to Ukraine. How do you see the situation right now in Ukraine?
Well, we have to keep in mind that yesterday, both Washington Post and NBC came out with Washington Post with opinion piece, which was inconceivable that it would have appeared even half a year ago, that yeah, we need to rethink victory. We need to talk to, the talks between Russia and Ukraine. Now we have NBC that admits openly, well, here it is. We want the settlement and peace talks. They call it peace talks. And suddenly today, Zelensky comes out and said, yeah, there are all kinds behind the scene, contacts between the, Westerners and, Russians. And you look at this and yeah, he's done. Okay, let's put it this way. First, Ukraine itself is done. There is no such state as Ukraine in functional sense. Ukraine exists only today because United States and West send it money. Militarily, it's been completely defeated. It's many people do not understand how bad it is on front for them, and how their kill ratios between Russians and them, it's just incomprehensible. It's not anymore 1-8 or 1-10. It's more like 1-25, 1-30. It's just absolute massacre and slaughter whatever forces they throw in. Just to give you an example, they now require 14 and 16-year-old children to register in the military commissariats in order to be immediately ready to be called on the territorial defense. So we have another basically crime against humanity happening there. And when Zelensky admits this, and Russians are very nonchalant, they said, no, it's not ready yet. We will know when you're, ready to talk. But again, the peace talks will basically be nothing more euphemism for Russia dictating the unconditional surrender. The terms of unconditional surrender, and that's the issue. Of course, they removed it from the first front lines of front pages of the media, but what is happening there is absolute catastrophe. And again, it's the whole other story, because they, in some sense, they are lucky that they got the Israel and Gaza, because it allowed to remove this. And some Russian, not only pundits, but serious people, especially from intelligence services, they come out and say they very openly, for Biden, it's the only chance to not end up behind bars, for Biden family and all this, that's how crooked, bought up, and, corrupt they are. So in this particular case, we have to wait and see, because Russia is deciding, and again, that's the only factor which really makes the difference. Russia is deciding how much it wants to go far now. And I'm talking about now, like in the nearest months to 3 months, maybe. Does it want to go to the right bank? Does it want to get Odessa, Nikolaev now or later, and however it will be arranged? So we'll see. But yeah, the war is pretty much winding down. And as I already stated, my sources, my friends who are daily, connected to the front lines and operational level issues on the front line, it's just unbelievable what is going on there. It's unbelievable, as my friend Marat Hayrulin says. I mean, some very many units actually refuse to fight. They will literally drop their weapons, run into the dugout, close themselves in, lock themselves in, and it's like small little children, hide under the blanket. So, and just yesterday, there was this video of the military volunteers, so to speak, being executed. We still have to decide who were actually running away from whom, but you would see yourself there, basically friendly forces killing each other. And then you have all kinds of other situations. For example, Russians literally now collect the hiding disorders of the armed forces of Ukraine in the forest. They literally go out in the forest in the video and pick up them like mushrooms, just like everywhere. They gather them, put them into some kind of formation, get them in the rear where they're processed by FSB, and so it's unbelievable. It's just something unprecedented, and it's reflecting now, today and yesterday. Even mainstream corporate media, which have their hands, in blood, and who abated, this war crime, they are calling now that, yeah, we need to rethink victory, we need to peace talks. Well, evidently they got the message in the White House. Too late, though.
You think that finally Russia gonna get Nikolaev and Odessa? Ukraine literally gonna be a landlord?
Yeah, it's. I think so. It's just a matter of how and when. Okay, it's not if. It could be the case of turning Ukraine into some kind with I mean, euphemism for breaking it up into some kind of the territorial formations, which is autonomies or confederation of some parts, whatever you want, which inevitably, Odessa is historic Russian city. Ukraine has nothing to do with that. It's a city established by Catherine the Great and the Prince Potemkin the Great. You know, these are Russian cities, which it was Tavrida governorship. Ukraine had nothing to do with this at all. I mean, and eventually Russians will not allow those Russian cities remain within the Ukraine. In other matter, what will be the path? Will Russians go there and do, some kind of the major movement, militarily after they're basically wiping out the remnants of the armed forces of Ukraine, or will they initiate some kind of the type of the uprising, if you wish, or will it go through more peaceful diplomatic ways or judicial ways, such as I already stated, new constitution in Ukraine, new government structure with huge autonomy for areas, and with eventually Odessa and Nikolaev Oblast voting, then saying, you know what, we're exiting whatever was left from Ukraine and, joining Russia, because Ukraine not just is being fully, but will be fully demilitarized. The way Ukraine, if it even is preserved in any form, the only way it will have any kind of armaments will be the probably police units. There will be no more armed forces of Ukraine. And they are being slaughtered on the unimaginable scale. And fact is, they have nobody to serve them anymore.
When these negotiations between Russia and Ukraine, between Russia and the US start, the western part of Ukraine gonna continue as a buffer zone?
Well, 2 days ago, Mr. Medvedev, and he is a very, very important man, Mr. Medvedev. He wrote a massive piece into Российская Газета, which is establishment. It's Russian equivalent of Washington Post or something like that, Российская Газета. He wrote a huge piece on history between Russia and Poland. And there is a veiled threat there, not in terms that Poland will not be allowed to take Western Ukraine, but in terms that actually it will bring about the collapse of Poland itself. Historically. So, and that Poland eventually will get its due because of what Poland's role now in basically destabilizing European Union. So it's complex issue there. Russia doesn't need Western Ukraine. But if Poland ever is allowed to basically get this Western, parts of the Western Ukraine and incorporated, which will be a death knell for Poland and Poles, there will be conditions imposed there, obviously. How it will play out, I don't know, but Russia doesn't need that, in terms of it doesn't have use for those people. Those people are basically fanatical Russophobes. This is their basically focal point of Ukrainian nationalism and Nazism, Nazi ideology, banderism. So we'll see. But Russia doesn't need Western Ukraine.
How do you see Poland today? They have changed tremendously. I want to know what's your take on their current policy in Ukraine.
Basically, it remains their policy driven by fanatical Russophobia, and all pragmatic, basically, people who would see the normal relations between Poland and Russia are not present in any political or media, whatever cultural way in Poland anymore. But we have to remember one thing. Unlike the Poland during the Warsaw Pact, Poland is utterly deindustrialized nation. It's the same service economy. It can produce here and there some separate things, but other than that, it's basically its economy primarily is how to say it, it's myth. It's the kind of, it's fake in many respects. It cannot maintain the army, a real army, the way it wants to view itself. It doesn't produce any serious tanks, aircraft, whatever. It cannot produce the required material to maintain even the smaller army. As you know, it's all bought from the United States, like those basically useless Abrams tanks and everything. Poland will get, they want the F-35s and things of this nature. But other than that, once you cut this off from the United States, militarily and, industrially wise, it's not what I think it is, Russians know the true worth of Poland as the nation state. And while Russians definitely had some good affiliation with the Polish culture, there is a lot to admire also there. But the Russophobia is now embedded. It's in Poland DNA, if you wish, and it's always going to be the enemy of Russia. So, Russians will do what they need to do in terms of countering that.
The US politicians were talking about, if we lose the war in Ukraine, we're going to send a bad message to China. It seems that the message that already have been sent to China.
That's what is most dangerous for the United States and NATO in terms of reputational losses, which are colossal. The world is not stupid. Unlike the graduates of the Harvard and Georgetown, departments of the international relations, who become then later US politicians, who are utterly ignorant and uneducated people. That's what basically American political elites are. And so are the European ones. They are highly uncultured, highly uneducated people. They are propagandists, they are ideologues, but they do not understand how to run states. This is already, at least they have now enough intellectual wherewithal to understand that that's it, guys. But my friend Vladimir Trukhan, who is a retired colonel of the central apparatus of Russian Ministry of Defense, he stated a couple of years ago when the whole thing started, and said, well, we don't even sweat about European NATO. Militarily, there was a lot of smoke and mirrors. Okay, they don't know war. They don't know war in Washington, D.C. Nobody knows it. None. Take any American officer from, basically ensign rank to whatever general. They do not understand what real war is. They have no clue. Everything they know about military history is wrong. All of them, without exception. Everything they learned about America's military history is myth primarily. It's smoke and mirrors. But they don't study. And again, the real war is hard. It's a lot of mathematics. It's a lot of training on a completely different foundations, than they train. And when you have your whole system, whole structure wound up, the clockwork, which is basically primarily PR. So what do you expect? Afghanistan was bad. We have Afghanistan on steroids, which is happening right now. And I'm talking about not one order of magnitude. I'm talking about 2, 3 orders of magnitude, because there's a complete destruction of NATO mythology and this founding myth of them that they are strong, like Obama declared, United States is the finest fighting force in history, which didn't win the single war. So this is something, I guess Romans and Mongol Tatars, they would have their, really big problems with those statements, okay? So if we, of course, and the Russians have other issue on this, with this issue too. Yeah, so, but you have these people. They don't understand the modern world. They don't understand how real economy works. They don't understand what real war is. None of them have experience of burying and, their relatives, their wives, their children. They don't understand what destruction is. Find me anyone in Pentagon, we will go to Arlington or whatever, ask anyone, how many relatives did you bury as the result of the foreign invasion? How many, how much of your houses have been burned? However, how did you fight knowing that somebody can come, capture your family, rape your wife, kill children and things like that, or sell them for slavery? United States has zero experience with that. So that is why when I listen to all those, American generals and things like that, it's a dudes, you won't pass the entrance exam to any military academy in Russia, let alone graduate it. And so you have those people. We're looking at the incompetence on the unbelievable level. And we're talking about people who miscalculated. They thought that they're that great. They don't even understand what Hitler and Axis was when they invaded the Soviet Union. And Soviet Union defeated them. I mean, American military doesn't even register anywhere in history, anywhere with Wehrmacht, okay? And when you look at this, like, what can I say? Hey, reality check, So, and when you look at this miscalculation, yeah, what did they expect? What did they expect? They don't understand how real war economy works. Well, they found out United States cannot produce even the main battle tank. Russia churns them out 1,600 a year. So it's just, and they say, oh, Russians should go now, paupers and, poor and everything. Have they been in Russia? And I'm not talking about just Moscow, St. Petersburg, Sochi, or Krasnodar. Did they travel in Russia? Do they understand what Russia is? No, they don't. America and West doesn't have a Russian studies field. All their experts are shysters. And they basically sell BS as you look at American or Western journals, all of them are pretty much corrupt and imbeciles, So you look at this, yeah, guys, it's like, how to explain it to them? They don't understand what operational and let alone strategic planning is. America doesn't have strategic planning. United States has zilch, none in the universe around, basically, any serious strategists. They have a lot of demagogues who sell themselves as the strategists. That's for sure. United States has plenty of this. But in terms of real military and geopolitical strategists, United States and West have none. Rather, those who they have, they are nowhere near at the top of the academic and political, elite. So there you go. What do you expect? I don't go to to do my dentistry work to the auto mechanic. I go to the dentist who has many, many years of dental practice, graduated the medical school and things of this nature. I just don't go to my nearest auto mechanic to fix my, to do fillings and, have teeth extracted. But you have auto mechanics running a dental clinic. And there you go. That's the result.
There is a strong partnership between Iran and Russia. Do you think that Russia can expand this partnership with these Arab nations to getting better and better as a result of this conflict in Israel?
Yes, I think so. And there is a thing which obviously is not reported in media. And many people don't understand why Russia still, doesn't go in and, takes more proactive, kind of aggressive policy towards Israel. There are many Jewish Russian citizens there. And when Hamas was starting this situation on the 7th of October, the funniest part was, and that gives you some insight, there were Jewish people in Gaza, but they were Russian citizens. And when Hamas recognized that they were dealing with Russian citizens, they haven't been touched, and they have been, so, and you see many people in Africa and Arab world now, waving Russian flags. That tells you something, really, so it's a complex process. It is the fine diplomacy. It's however you regulate or balance those things. Obviously, it's for Mr. Lavrov and his department, ministry, to handle this. But I think so that, yes, Arabs definitely appreciate what Russia is doing. And there are talks now that after Mr. Haftar of Libya, that they talk now about Russians, creating another naval base in Libya. So, I mean, Russians have been present in Libya until the 1992, I think. So we'll see. But yes, I think so. It's improving the Arab-Russian relations.
The US bases all around the world, many military bases, is weakening the US Army. Is that strategic to put all of them together to manage all of the? It's a huge work for the US government to manage that. How do you see this?
Well, obviously, nobody ever in the United States heard such thing as concentration of forces. So they also miss somehow on their classes about the military technology and weapon systems. Having so many bases, it's classic, basically spreading the forces thin, strategic overstretch, apart from the fact that nowadays those bases are just fat sitting targets. Evidently, they don't understand that in both US Congress and in Pentagon. Again, as I already stated, Pentagon doesn't know what the real war is. They still live in this bubble of the mythology of the Gulf War, and they think that it was a real war. It was a Turkish shoot against the utterly incompetent and and badly trained and badly equipped enemy. But hey, whatever, And the point is that, yes, you're absolutely correct. It's spreading forces thin. You want to accomplish something, concentrate forces. But you see, United States is an island. It's a huge island, continental island, but they are behind two oceans. And this is both a blessing, but it is also, in military terms, completely arrests serious strategic thinking in terms of using its forces. And as the result, yeah, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't have bases if you want to basically have some kind of presence. But the United States has now about 800 bases around the world. So, I mean, yeah, it's 800 very fat sitting targets. That's as the US armed forces learned the hard way 2020 when Iran responded with the basically salvo of the missiles against the 3 US bases after General Soleimani has been assassinated. So there you go. It's, well, who is complaining? Let them keep those bases. It's drain on everything, manpower, financial power, technology, what have you. What can I say?
The conflict in Ukraine, special military operation, is it going to continue to 2024 election in the US, or is it going to come to an end before that?
I don't know. Russians have no reasons to rush, honestly. They know. That's what I was saying this from the from the get-go. When people are saying Russians have to move fast until they, guys, I was saying, no, there's no rush. Why rush when you can sit there? You have strategic intelligence. Russia's strategic intelligence is probably the best in the world in strategic analysis, and they see what is happening around. Why not use? Why not to ride this wave? And in this case, I always think about it this way. We remember what Iranians did to Carter administration. They humiliated Carter administration with taking hostages, of course, which is, of course, very bad thing to do. US and Canadian hostages, you remember, in 1979. Not only they humiliated Carter administration, but they rubbed the salt into the wound by releasing all hostages on the day of the inauguration of Ronald Reagan. So, and let me put it this way, Russians have even way more capabilities than Iranians, and they may continue it, to just make a present to their basically what amounts to, as James Kussler calls it, party of chaos, Democrats, and those rhinos, which neocons, to make sure that their candidates and their party lose by exposing something and creating some kind of major PR event like, yeah, let's sign the peace, which is now not peace, the unconditional surrender. We move into this and this cities and things of this nature to demonstrate how humiliated Biden administration is, because Russians have no reason to talk to anybody from Biden administration other than some remaining professionals from whatever is left of American military and intelligence organizations, which do have contacts between them and Russians. And I think so, if it could be Carter #2, but done on a much greater scale. And we're talking about several orders of magnitude. Could the Russians go for it? Why not? Why not? It's good to, rub salt into the wound and, expose already the emperor's new clothes. So there you go.
Some reports from the US intelligence, they were talking about that the Wagner group is going to give missile system to Hamas. Is that correct? Or they're making...
Well, it's complete garbage. Mr. Kartapolov, the deputy State Duma chief of the, basically chair of the security committee of Duma, and himself a general, he came out yesterday, on the 3rd. Wagner group doesn't exist anymore in any way. There is none. There is no Wagner group judicially. There is no Wagner group militarily. It was completely dissolved. It never will exist again, period. Those of Wagner group fighters who wanted to enroll with the Russian Ministry of Defense, they did enroll. Some of them enrolled to the Akhmat Brigade by Ramzan Kadyrov and Avtiel Audinov. Others involved in the other units and formations of Russian armed forces after giving the oath to the Russian state. Period. There is no Wagner.